He's doing something that is getting a lot of attention nationally, and he's doing it right here in St. Louis. About a year now, he's been walking the streets of St. Louis, asking any and all who wants to join him to just tell the world and tell the people in these communities that they are not forgotten. Reverend Ken McCoy, our guest, also one of the people who walks with him, is Jay Kanzler, good friend of the show. You were telling us on the break, Reverend, that the communities you walk in St. Louis it's their own social structure and their own community onto themselves. Explain that.
Definitely. Well, I explained it by sharing with you my experience. When we first started walking, nobody would speak to us. I mean, we walked down streets and there was just people, gang, one particular gang here and drug addicts there, and nobody would speak until they were convinced that we were not there to tell on them. So they have their own social hierarchy that's very, very clear. And people have to understand your role and why you're out in the community like that at night. It's just not this free-for-all that people think it is. It's a very, very structured social order.
You also said that people know what's going on.
Oh, yes. Nobody's fooling anybody out there. I don't care what you hear about people hustling. Everybody knows who's doing what. So everybody has a clearly defined role in the streets, and none of it's a secret to anybody. So we're known as, some of the youngsters call me Black Jesus and or the sandwich people or the people from the church or something, but everybody has an identifiable role.
So the drug addicts know the drug addicts are going to get the drugs. The drug dealers are there, the prostitutes are there, the people are there, everyone, it's a whole community unto itself.
It really is.
What is this Friday?
This Friday, we're going to do a peace walk. We did something like this in Kansas City, and we had over 1,000 people to come out, and it was covered quite extensively in the media. That was a moment. It was around the shooting in Minnesota, and then the one in Baton Rouge, and then the police officer killing. That was a moment in America I think we were able to capture. Not intentionally, we had planned it anyway, but more than 1,000 people came out. And so we want to do a peace walk here in the greater Ville area, because that is the most violent zip code ward area in the entire city. It accounts for nearly half of the homicides. So we're going to kick off our peace walk in that neighborhood. And we're going to be walking, in addition to Fountain Park and Lewis Place and parts of Academy, we're going to start walking at least once a week in the greater Ville area.
And so what are you asking for people to do Friday night?
To come out at 7:30 to the Samuel Brown Temple, AME Zion Church, 4400 Kennerly, on the corner of Kennerly and Newstead, and hear some testimonies of some people who have been impacted by violence, participate in the training, pray with us, and spend some time walking with us.
And just so everyone's clear, not everyone is as comfortable walking the streets. And that night, it's not just us. We also we'll have a police presence with us. We'll be a large group.
Right.
And so this isn't organized. This isn't like one of the 10 of us going into the streets. This is a bigger deal.
Right.
People can feel comfortable joining us that evening to see what it is the Reverend McCoy and the others are doing and to participate themselves.
Reverend, there are people who watch the protests in Ferguson and the Black Lives Matter and say they wouldn't be caught dead walking in a joint protest with those people. They don't like me. I don't trust them. I'm not safe. What do you say to those people?
Well, I think that there's a big difference in what we're doing and what went on in Ferguson. This is a faith, and this is not to the exclusion of what happened in Ferguson. This is something that's faith-based. Friday night, as Jay said, will be something totally different. It will be symbolic. It will be something that's symbolic. Hopefully, we'll be able to recruit people as a result on it. But there will be a police presence, and we'll walk about 1.5 miles and come back to the church, debrief, and pray. I think, for the most part, people will be very safe.
Yeah. And I think, again, what Reverend McCoy is doing and what I have witnessed up there, I've walked with people from the Black Lives Matter. I've walked with doctors from WashU. I've walked with people from all walks of life that have different points of view that come together, and it's, I don't say you put that aside, but that's not what's important on these nights when we're out walking.
Exactly
what's important is we're out there walking and we are a presence. And then people can go and have their different beliefs and pursue their other agendas later on. That's not the agenda of what Reverend McCoy is doing.
No, and we certainly don't want to racialize it, politicize it, or anything of that nature. Again, it's faith-based. Closest thing we had to an argument, my Republican friend Dennis, who comes up from Kansas City, said, hey, Ken, let's be real. It's the closest thing we had to an argument. Let's be real. Mike Brown, all he had to do was raise his hands, and he would have been all right. And I replied, Mike Brown would have been all right had he not been shot. So that was the closest thing we had to an argument or a disagreement.
Take me through walking the streets at night with your 6, 8, 10, 12 people on an average night. Do you feel safe? Does the street and the street element, now that they know you, protect you somewhat?
Yes, to a large extent they do. We actually have people who watch our cars, but every now and then there's a shooting. And when the streets are particularly dangerous in those neighborhoods, we know people, and they'll say to us, Rev, don't you all walk down this street or don't walk down that street tonight. Or somebody in law enforcement, if they'll hear something, they'll ride down on us and ask us, are we okay? So, yes, we've been able to build the trust and build those kinds of relationships where we do feel pretty safe.
I've always enjoyed watching every once in a while some of the groups out there that engage in probably the illegal commerce. We'll come up and we'll donate part of the proceeds to Reverend McCoy's church, which he's a pastor of a church, and the effort and. Because again,
so they tithe.
But I don't see it. It sounds strange, but you know what it is? There is, as you said, this culture out there, and some folks do what they do,
right.
But they also understand that without people like Reverend McCoy and the people that are out trying to make a difference in their neighborhood, life isn't going to get better for anyone there.
We convinced a few to go to college, to go to Harris Stowe, a few to go to Rankin. So we actually have a report that there's some science to it that showed that homicides did go down by 3 in the Lewis Place neighborhood during the time we were walking.
Jay Kanzler, you've been doing this for a while. What have you learned walking the streets of St. Louis?
It's a different view. I've seen people that I never thought existed. People living in their cars, people living under tarps in alleys. I've seen people that really want to get out of their circumstances and really are somewhat lost. I've seen horrible addiction, heroin addiction in the streets. I've seen people begging Reverend McCoy, help me get off heroin, help me get off, and the struggle is amazing. I've also seen that I don't care how many people tell you, oh, people are just gaming the system. It's all about, they get their welfare and they get There isn't a person that I've ever met out there that wouldn't trade all the welfare and all the aid in the world just for an opportunity to have a safe place for their family and education for their kids. There are circumstances beyond their control. That doesn't mean there's not responsibility. That the responsibility does need to be placed at on certain people, and they need to do certain things. But sometimes it's beyond their control. And it's not us versus them.
Yeah, Reverend Ken McCoy, what have you learned in doing this for a year or so?
Oh my God, I've learned so much. I've learned. I've had to re-educate myself in terms of my own personal theology. That I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of nothing, just participating in religious rituals and being part of a church organization that sometimes was no more or had no more value to the community than a social club. And so this has really, really touched me very, very deeply spiritually, that probably for the first time in my life as a minister, I feel like I'm doing what God intends for me to do. It's not glamorous, I'll admit that. And, nothing sexy about it, that's for sure. But I believe that I'm doing precisely what God has called me to do. And not just me, but I believe other members of the clergy and other churches should be involved in something like this.
I'm there because Reverend McCoy was there first.
Yeah. Reverend Ken McCoy, founder and director of NightLIFE. Do you looking for donations? Do you need donations? Do you need cash? Do you want cash?
Well, the funny thing about it, I'm not necessarily trying to to build an empire. Because one of the things I want to do, I want to prove to people this doesn't take a whole lot to do a lot of good. You can do a lot of good, and God always uses a remnant. But it does get a little expensive because I sort of finance the thing out of my own pocket, and it's about $100 a week. You know, I go to Save-A-Lot, and that's a plug for them. And but they could donate this stuff. But anyway, and it's about $100, a little more than $100 a week by the time we get through buying the water and the bread and things of that nature.
Right.
What we'd really love to see is more clergy, more people come out and join us, and just be present in the neighborhoods with us.
Reverend Ken McCoy, founder and director of NightLIFE. And what you want is if people are interested in donating, joining you Friday night, what do you want them to do?
Well, they can give me a call, area code 314-766-9143, and we have a Facebook page called NightLIFE. They can just go to our Facebook page, NightLIFE, or our church page, Progressive AME Zion Church.
And Friday night, 7:30.
7:30.
Where?
4400 Newstead, on the corner of Kennedy and Newstead. That's Samuel Brown Temple, AME Zion Church.
All right, and the phone number is 314-766-9143.
Yes.
Or the Facebook page, NightLIFE. Reverend Ken McCoy, founder and director of NightLIFE, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jay.
You bet.
936, Big 550. There's something called a cross you have to bear, and that is just sort of something you've sort of inherited. And, you know, those friends that you're like, well, they're friends, but I don't really know why they're my friend. I just can't shake them. Well, that's our next guest. Is Jay Kanzler, who is a local gadfly, local attorney, reformed politician, all-around good guy. And lo and behold, I didn't know this, we're now co-producing a movie.
Yes, a short film, talk radio.
Which is, and I was typecasted. I was, what did I play in the movie Talk Radio?
You played a real right-wing nut job radio host.
How did I do?
You were good.
And you are going to submit this to
All
Sundance.
of the short films generally go on the film festival circuit,
Right.
and Sundance and Tribeca and South by Southwest. All of those coming up in the winter.
Right, and we should say that Rance Howard, who is Ron Howard's father, was in it too.
Right, you and Rance were great. Both of you did a fabulous job.
Well, you know, I've worked with Scorsese, and now I've worked with Jay Kanzler, so I got to tell you, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, Jay Kanzler, you also brought along a friend of yours, Reverend Ken McCoy, founder and director of NightLIFE. Reverend Ken, welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Thank you so much for having me.
Are you from St. Louis?
No, not originally, no.
How long have you been living in St. Louis?
Been here nearly 30 years now.
30 years?
Yeah, I guess I'm a St. Louis.
At some point, you almost be a St. Louisan. All right.
Right,
At some point, the double secret probation label comes off, and you become a St. Louisan. You walk the streets at night.
Right.
Tell us about it.
Well, let me tell you what inspired it first, because it really sounds a little bizarre if you don't know the story behind it. That as a pastor, I noticed a trend in terms of individuals that I was eulogizing, and far too often they were people in their 20s who died as a result of gunfire. And I remember the most recent one I did was a young lady who was murdered over in the JVL in Rumboldt Park. She was shot in the head in broad daylight in front of her children and her neighbors. And I eulogized that young lady, and I remember seeing at the funeral, just really sort of noting her grandmother just overwhelmed with grief, standing over her granddaughter's casket, just really lamenting, really crying. And that just really struck a nerve with me. And then shortly thereafter...
How long ago was this?
This was last summer.
Last summer.
The early part of last summer.
Okay.
And around that same time, my own son was shot 5 times. Thank God he survived.
How old was he?
He's 23.
Okay.
But I felt helpless in that moment, watching that grandmother just cry like that. And my politics was challenged. My theology was challenged. Everything about me was just literally shaken. And I just sort of understood from that moment that I was not doing nearly enough. And this may sound bizarre. I did hear the voice of God say to me, this is something that you need to do. And I went in the streets, and we've been out there since that time, from 10 o'clock to sometimes 2 in the morning, depending on what's going on in the streets.
And what do you do?
Well, it's what we call a ministry of presence. We certainly are not law enforcement. We're not in a position to make arrests, and we're not even looking for to do anything that remotely resembles that. But a lot of what we do is about being at the right place at the right time. We've been able to stop, and I know that from firsthand experience, 2 potential homicides in the Fountain Park and Lewis Place neighborhoods.
And how did you come up with this idea? You at 10 o'clock at night take the worst part of town and just start walking and talking? And what's your goal here?
Yeah, well, it was really nothing sophisticated. It was just as simple as you said. We looked at Fountain Park and Lewis Place. One reason because the FBI had done a report some time ago that said it had listed it as one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the whole country. And I had done some work over there before, so we just decided that would be a good place to start.
And you come across people who are out on the street. Do you talk to them? Do you, do you try and change their lives? Do you just sort of become their friend, or you just sort of counsel them? What happens?
He's walked with us, Jay. Yes, all of the above. Yeah. All of the above. Earlier on, nobody trusted us. Nobody believed us. It was just kind of odd to see clergy walking around with clergy collars on in the middle of the night. But eventually we built trust, and people would come to us for prayer. It's a faith-based thing. I don't apologize for my faith. Mm-hmm. I think too many people do that. It's a faith-based thing, so people will come to us for prayer. We've encountered younger men who are in gangs. We've encountered drug addicts, pimps, the whole 9 yards. That particular area around the Hodemont tracks is a very, very unusual place. You'll run into just about everything. And I thought that I knew the streets, but I really did not. I did not have a clue until we started walking those neighborhoods.
The first night you went out there alone?
Yes, I did.
And when you go out every Friday night or every night, or how?
Every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
And then people started joining you on this walk?
Yes, they did, and it was amazing the kind of people that joined us on the walk. I didn't necessarily do any recruiting, but we've had Republicans from St. Charles, Republicans from Kansas City to drive all the way down, and still do. We've had black nationalists. We've had people from the Black Lives Matter movement. We've had just all kinds of individuals and we welcome them all, because this is as apolitical as it could be, but it certainly is faith-based. I can't emphasize that enough. We will be praying in Jesus' name when we're out on those streets.
Reverend Ken McCoy, our guest, founder and director of NightLIFE. Jay, when did you get hooked up with this?
I joined Ken as a member of the clergy. I guess I've been out with them 6 months ago. I reached out to them after Ferguson. My big thing was after Ferguson and seeing all the protests, and all the media and everybody running around trying to get an interview and lining up out there, and I don't blame people for wanting to protest, but it seemed like when the media went home, all the people that wanted to make a difference, they all went home as well. And yet every night almost there's another shooting in North St. Louis, and oftentimes it's not just gang members shooting gang members, it's women and their kids and their grandkids, and it angered me, and I didn't understand why people weren't angry every night of the week and out there trying to make a difference every night of the week. I saw I think a news report about what Reverend McCoy was doing, and it sounded just what I wanted to do. That is, make a difference every night, not just when the cameras are there, not just when you feel like making a point, because these neighborhoods and these folks, it is a ministry of presence. It's not going in there, I'm going to fix you.
Right.
Okay? You're not going in there to fix those people. If you make a difference in someone's life, maybe once in a while, you know, that's a huge thing. But what you are doing is saying, you're not forgotten. We're not giving up on your neighborhood. We're not giving up on you. God hasn't given up on you. And so we're just going to be there. And, you know, we'll hand out sandwiches. We'll hand out water when it's hot, coffee if it's cold. And you build that relationship. And you hope that as a result, other people within the neighborhood have the faith and the strength to come out and walk and make a difference every night.
Reverend Ken McCoy, how many people went with you last week?
Last week we didn't have a very big crowd. We got some rain one night. In fact, I rode in the Moonlight Ramble. I do that religiously, and I want to personally, publicly thank Jay and Reverend Brown.
We covered for the Reverend McCoy.
Well, I was riding my bike,
So you were riding your bike, and you guys took the walk.
That's right.
Well, on a typical Friday night, like tonight, you're going to go out, or this Friday, you're going to go out.
Right.
How many on a typical Friday night do you walk with in the streets?
So anywhere from 8 to 13 or 14, something like that.
And you do it starting at 10?
Starting at 10.
And go till?
Well, it depends on what's going on out there. We usually go to 1, but if there's something going on, we're out there later. There was a homicide earlier on, and I was out there from 10 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock the next morning because I knew some of the guys, and I was concerned about retaliation.
Right.
And I just stayed there just to sort of like be a gnat in their ear or something, to just keep reminding them that retaliation is not the way to go, and it would just bring more violence.
I would think if you're on this, well, first of all, the neighbors who are living in these neighborhoods, who their only sin is that they're poor, they don't have money to sort of move out, they must look at you people as God walking down the street trying to protect them and save them.
It's amazing. They're very, very kind to us, and it's nothing for people to just sort of look out their window or from their porch, say, God bless you, and we appreciate what you all are doing. And every now and then somebody will ride by and say, you guys must be crazy. So the neighborhood certainly knows that we're out there. And for the most part, they appreciate what we're doing.
Yeah. What about the other gangbangers? I think they, at this point, you sort of alluded to the fact that you've garnered their respect and their trust.
Some, yes, we have, but that's a night-to-night kind of situation because you have young people who are living on the edge. Some have outstanding warrants. Some are running from the police. Some are running from rival gang members. And it's a very, very sensitive kind of thing. And that's really a night-to-night kind of thing. Because early on, we were mistaken as snitches, sort of placed in the neighborhood. And that was kind of dangerous because the area that we were walking, there had been a number of arrests right after we started walking. So we really had a time sort of rebuilding that trust around that.
Yeah.
But we did.
Reverend Ken McCoy, can you stay through the break?
Sure.
Jay, can you stay through the break?
I sure can.
You guys are walking this weekend.
Yes.
And you're always looking for more people to come and walk with you.
Yes.
Where do they go? How do they find out more information?
Well, they can meet us. Well, the best thing for them to do is to give me a call, area code 314-766-9143.
9143. 766-9143.
Yes.
And you do it Friday, you do Thursday, Friday, and Saturday?
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Jay?
But this Friday night is a especially big night, and
We'll talk about the big special Friday night event coming up next. Reverend Ken McCoy and local attorney Jay Kanzler here on the Big 550 KTRS. Looking for an appliance? Look no further. I got one for you. Appliance Discounters. Appliance Discounters has an LG double oven, 5-burner electric stainless steel stove, top of the line. Sells normally for $1,400. At Appliance Discounters, $10.99. How about a dependable dishwasher? Every single Bosch dishwasher at Appliance Discounters is on sale. Cash rebates and free installation as well. I can go on and on, but the point is this, is that Appliance Discounters has big name brand luxury appliances. They have ding and dent appliances and everything in between. So if you want to go to a big box store and spend more money, feel free. But now you are officially notified that Appliance Discounters has better pricing. They got great financing deals. And best part of all, it's a St. Louis company. So the St. Louis company is beating the big box stores with all of their advantages at their own game. Appliance Discounters with 6 area locations. ApplianceDiscounters.com. That's ApplianceDiscounters.com.